and welcome to the Hybrid School Builders Podcast. I am your host, Rebecca Foley, and I am so glad you are joining me today. I am a fellow grassroots founder who is hoping to make your journey toward founding a sustainable hybrid school a little bit easier. If you are dreaming of starting a hybrid school, or perhaps you've already gotten started, you are in the right place. Join me as we dive into real stories, practical tips, and hard-won lessons that I have learned to help you launch and grow your program with confidence. Remember, building a hybrid school is not just about creating a business or creating jobs. It's not even about just serving the children who attend the program. It's literally about reshaping the landscape of education, and we can do that one community, one entrepreneur, and one program at a time. Hey guys, so I wanted to quickly just go through the officer positions of a board so that you could share this with your board members, like just this episode, if you're just getting a board off of the ground, and speak to those officer positions, okay? Because through most of this, I'm talking to like a founder who usually ends up being a director, but I just want to talk about those positions specifically. So the three officer positions that you have to have are president, secretary, and treasurer. Okay, so president, you are the one who is conducting and keeping order in meetings. You are presiding over the meeting. You are also known as the chair of a meeting, okay? So your job is to know the agenda, although the secretary should be the one who's actually putting the agenda together before the meeting. We'll talk about that in a second. But you need to know the agenda. You need to have thought through how you're going to conduct the meeting, how you're going to get through the timing and all of that. You're going to start the meeting, right? And by saying, okay, we're going to get started, guys, meeting minutes are starting to be recorded. Let's go, okay? Or you can use official Robert's rules. You're having a clear start to the meeting. We're going to go through the agenda. This is what we have to cover today. We're going to make sure that we cover, these things. We're not going to spend too much time on this. And we're going to be ending at whatever time, okay? You're conducting the meeting by getting it started, all right? Then as you go through the meeting, you're making sure that you're moving through the agenda. You're leading. You're making sure that everyone is contributing. You're making sure that nobody is domineering. Okay, and so it takes some assertiveness. It takes some leadership in the sense that if you've got somebody who's, talking a lot, or someone who isn't showing up, or they're on their phone the whole time, or they're not saying anything, that you are holding those people accountable in the sense of like, hey, Bob, what do you think about that? Or, okay, can we hear from somebody else now? You're holding order in the meeting. Also a very important thing that often gets overlooked often accidentally, is actually conducting votes. Okay, sometimes this is very common, is that you have a conversation, you talk about something that's on the agenda, and be careful of this too, you get in the weeds with something that's tangential to what was on the agenda, or maybe wasn't on the agenda at all, and 10 minutes later, people are talking about something that wasn't even part of the meeting, okay? That can happen too. But let's say it was in the agenda. It was something you were supposed to talk about. You were supposed to discuss. Everyone kind of gives their input. Maybe you have a good conversation, and then it kind of fades and you don't actually take a vote, okay? So one of the jobs that you should have is saying, okay, so we've discussed this. Does anyone have anything else to say? Let's take a vote on it. Would anyone like to make a motion? Make sure that there's a vote taken, all right? And it's officially recorded what the vote is, all right? Make sure the votes are happening. And then you're ending your meeting on time. You're making sure the operational stuff is staying out of the meeting. Either, oh, that's operational, let's talk about that later, or let's pass that off to the director. They can take care of that, okay? Or maybe a committee, all right? The other important thing that you really should be doing in the bigger picture is making sure that onboarding is happening with new members, making sure there's a calendar, that everyone understands what is happening at different times of the year as far as compliance stuff. And you need to know these things too. This is part of the training. I'm not going to go into all of that, but like, when are the taxes due? The treasurer can take that one for the most part, but you should know when. When are the taxes due? When is any state paperwork due? Do we need to make a strategic plan? Do we need to revisit it? Have we revisited our bylaws this year? You should know what that yearly cycle looks like also, and make sure that that is happening. All right. So those are the major parts of a president's job. in the meeting, conducting the meeting, getting started, taking votes, keeping order, and then ending the meeting on time, and also knowing what's going on throughout the year and making sure that that's happening. You're contributing along with the director as part of the agenda, as you're building out the agenda. So you're working together, everyone's collaborating. You're probably working with the director behind the scenes a little bit in more communication if you need to, depending on what your structure is. But try to make sure that you're staying in your governance lane and not getting too much into operational lanes unless, they're asking you for help with that. Also, make sure that the director is being taken care of in the sense that you have one who's named, and often that is the founder. They know what their job description is. They're getting paid, right? You're making sure that that's happening. It's the only staff position that you're responsible for as a board. The whole board should be doing it, or at least the executive team, the 3 officers at least, as a committee, is making sure that that executive director is named and paid, evaluated, held accountable to some extent, right? Like some sort of yearly evaluation. You're checking in with other staff, make sure they're doing their job well, the mission's being delivered, okay? That's also something you should be leading the charge on. Okay, treasurer. Treasurers are the ones who, probably self-explanatory, are overseeing the financial side of things. Now, there's probably an operational person in a larger school, especially. There's probably an operational person who's actually doing the daily stuff. There's probably a bookkeeper. You're probably hiring out taxes, I would advise, unless the treasurer is willing to do and able to do the taxes, but they can do that for sure. But a lot of times you just hire it out, hire the bookkeeper. Planning budget. Again, you have to work very collaboratively with the executive director because they know what the needs are and what's going on to build a planning budget, but the treasurer should be involved in that. So often what the treasurer will do is head up the finance committee and meet in between board meetings with the executive director and any other staff or any other committee members to keep an eye on the financial transparency stuff, maybe take a look at statements every month or 2 months or whatever, and figure out where money is getting spent, and raises and tuition and all of that kind of thing often is happening in financial committee meetings. You have to work out how much of that is just going to be staff stuff that you just keep an eye on, and you kind of get a report from the staff, like, here's what we're thinking, here's what we're looking at, here's what our budget is going to look like. The finance committee might just review it and then recommend to the greater board in a board meeting, like, we've reviewed this, we think this looks good, and we recommend that you accept it. That's the treasurer. You have to be able to understand what you're looking at and ask the right questions at a minimum. Okay. So just be able to look at the reports and the statements, understand the tax documents to some extent, be a little bit familiar with nonprofit accounting. Even if you just understand a little bit of bookkeeping and statements and you're willing to educate yourself a bit on nonprofit language, that's really good. Okay. And you need to be able to head up the finance committee meetings. And they don't have to be like every month. They could be 3 times a year or something. But you have to figure out, what is the finance committee going to do? How you talk to the executive director, how much support do they need? How much is the staff going to do? You have to work out the details of it, right? But the treasurer should be making sure that happens, like own that part of the position. Planning budget, taxes, the 990, you probably are going to be signing that yourself because the board is responsible for that, not the executive director actually filing taxes with the IRS, the 990 form. And those are your main responsibilities. Okay, secretary, your job is making sure that meeting minutes are kept during meetings. So you're saying that you started, you're saying any votes, summarizing any major discussions, action items. You're sitting there typing as the meeting is going on, okay? That's one of your main jobs. You're sending out the agenda before the meeting, hopefully like a week before the meeting. You're sending out the meeting minutes after the meeting. You're keeping all of the files, the important files, don't keep it in your personal, this happens a lot. Don't keep it in your personal email or your personal drive folder. Put it in a shared organizational folder so that it can be passed on to the next secretary, right? And it's easy to share. It happens a lot, but don't do that because you're going to regret it later, probably. You're keeping the meeting minutes. You should be keeping electronic, possibly even physical copies of IRS paperwork, the the articles of incorporation, like the major organizational documents, you should know where they are. You should have them filed away, and it should be in a shared accessible place. But you should be keeping track of that. You're like the paperwork person, right? The executive director's contract, you might end up drafting it, hopefully not by yourself, with help from the other officers, the president and the treasurer at minimum. The agenda items are going to be sent to you, most likely, from the director, president, maybe some other people. This is something we need to talk about in our next meeting. And you're sending out the agenda, which doesn't have to be super complicated. It can just be some line item things. You might be working with the director and the president more directly, or they might just be submitting things and you put the agenda together, however it works best for you. Okay? The other members of the board are there. They don't necessarily have a officer type position like that special. They're just there to take votes and to do their homework and to contribute and to help strategize. And they should be serving on committees, if at all possible, any of these other committees that will help in between meetings, help with the governance so that you're not spending your board meetings digging deeply into things, even if they're non-operational stuff, they're actual governance stuff, which is what you're supposed to be doing, right? It sometimes just takes too long to do it in a board meeting with everybody sitting there. So that's where committees fit in between. Okay? So you would think about how that works best for you. But those are the 3 officer positions. The other voting members should just be there voting, but they still need to do their homework. They still need to participate. And that hopefully helps you understand what each officer is supposed to be doing and what the responsibilities look like. Thanks so much for listening today. Don't forget to subscribe and make sure you check out the resources I am developing at startahybridSchool.com. Send me an email anytime. I would love to hear from you. Until next time.